Debuting in Medarot 8 as a variant to the longtime classic Blackmail, it is DBL0 variant Blackmail X, with a kit of anti-CG, double ghost, biped legs, and the leg ability of super armor, which grants him passive immunity to paralyze ailments a set number of times while in battle. Now, between Blackmail and Blackmail X, there really is no overall difference between the two of them. Their stats across the board are relatively identical. Their arms, of course, have the same kind of skill at Ghost, so you could use either of them very easily. Aside from the physical aesthetic, where Blackmail X is just a little bit brighter of a shade than typical Blackmail, the ultimate difference between the two is the head and the leg ability between the two. Blackmail X's head is currently the only use in the game of anti-CG, which is essentially reverse Ghost. So essentially, where if Ghost is a defense-ignoring attack that gets a damage bonus relative to your personal charge gauge, anti-CG is the inverse of that. You deal more damage the more of a charge that your target has. So if your target is, for instance, at a 100% charge, so say, for instance, an EX trial with enemy at full charge modifier, anti-CG head very quickly can decimate that target and cripple them, if not kill them outright, very easily before they even have the chance to do anything, because anti-CG relies on the opponent's charge more than yours. Ghost, of course, like I said, relies on your personal charge, but also has the defense ignoring and damage bonus abilities, just like anti-CG, so very heavy-hitting bot, pretty much no matter which way you look at him, between his arms or his head. He very easily can stockpile himself as a very heavy nuker, between using his own charge for Ghost with his arms, or relying on the enemy charge maybe later or a little farther into the battle with his head, maybe for that Dark Horse finish to turn the tides where they least expect it. Leg ability of super armor honestly is really nice though, as it does give him that extra ability to tank anything that might potentially cripple him on the field, especially with Paralyze Ailments. Because he is a little sluggish on the field, he's not going to be rather fast, but being the heavy hitter he is, he's not going to be focusing on speed, more rather he's going to be focusing on firepower and raw nuking potential. So for the reasons stated above, as a pure set and kind of par for the course with most DBLs that I've rated thus far at this point, I would rate him about a 5 out of 10 typically. Not to say that he's bad or has bad stats, because he's very tanky and has a very high base damage potential. But he is, like I mentioned, just a little sluggish, a little on the slower end essentially. Super armor is a little bit of a forgiveness to that, however, as he can make up for it pretty easily. He does have a rather high HP pool too, so he can tank a hit pretty decently without it crippling him. But because there is no major metaphor sustain essentially in his kit, it does make kind of building up that higher damage bonus a little tricky if you use him as a pure set. However, using him with a hunter or sniper nature can fix that relatively easily. Not as much so that it's going to be a perfect fix, but enough for you to actually get something going, more or less. As mixed parts, however, I would rate him much higher at a 7 out of 10, and in the sense that you can use either of his arms on any kind of particular melee nuking build, say with Cross Messiah's head very easily, and make use of that instant full charge for the high damage output near instantaneously from turn 2 onwards. Anti-CG probably would be a little tricky to make use of on mixed builds, particularly in the sense that you really can't use full charge on it because it's a head part, but maybe compensating for it with maybe something like Charge Plant with an ally, or maybe using a couple conventional skills on the build and then using anti-CG as your killer move can probably make use of that relatively easily. So for that, high damage potential, rather high HP pool too for tanking, very solid ability like I mentioned to help him with the tanking and keep it from being crippled too quickly. You will never go wrong with any of his particular parts on any kind of melee nuking based build.